Hello, everybody, and welcome to PNSQ Chronicles, the absolute best vidcast you are going to see based on the Pacific Northwest Software Quality Conference, mainly because it's the only one. I am Michael Larsen.
Hello, I am Srilu Balla.
And we are your hosts this week, and we are happy to have April K. Mills joining us. I hope that's not too formal.
So I always include the K because when you Google me, April Mills is fairly generic, but if you add the K, it'll come up with just me. So it just helps people find me easier.
Okay, so, April is a consultant, author, speaker, and she specializes in change leadership, and she has worked with some pretty amazing areas and individuals. She's actually worked with Intel Corporation, which would be a real interesting place to, which leads me into a great, I guess, first question. So you're talking about being a change agent. And I'm looking at a place like Intel, and that strikes me as being one of the most psychotically regulated environments in existence. How does one be a change agent at a place like Intel? How's that for a leadoff?
That's great. It's perfect. And actually, Intel was much less regulated than where I started my career, which was as a nuclear engineer civilian for the US Navy, working on aircraft carrier and submarine reactor plants. So that was even more controlled and managed from a quality and reliability perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But in both cases, the key to being a change agent is actually thinking about how am I protecting the outcome, something that quality professionals think about all the time. And then what can I do with what I have where I am to make the system better at protecting that outcome? That's actually what high reliability and very detailed and managed systems want from people. And so being a change agent just means living that out in your work versus waiting for your boss to tell you to improve or protect the system.
So for quality professionals specifically, where do you see the strongest opportunities to act as the change agents within the organizations, particularly when they hold formal leadership, I mean, they do not hold the formal leadership roles?
Well, I think this comes naturally, being a change agent comes naturally to a quality professional because you are drawn to the work to act as that backstop against a status quo. To improve the status quo, to make the system better is your passion and your calling. And what I bring in helping people see themselves as change agents is tactics and tools that quality professionals can use to augment their quality skills to help their organization succeed. Because in so many instances, the status quo to create an improvement is to become the boss so you can order people to improve. I call this driving people. But that rarely works, especially if you're not the boss and you don't have that authority. So when you go in and try and force people to improve, many of you know that doesn't work. But if you instead role model it, clear obstacles, help others, what I call driving change, choosing the change for yourself and clearing the obstacles for others to choose it to, then anybody anywhere can be a change agent and make a positive impact.
Awesome. That's really cool. You emphasize the whole idea of you don't have extra money, you don't have extra people, you don't have extra time, and yet you still are hoping that you're going to be able to drive and create change opportunities. That sounds very much a core reality for a lot of us. How have you managed to do that? Like, I realize if you can't say names or anything, that's totally understandable, but do you have an example of where you managed to do that? And could you, even if just generally, describe how you did it?
Yeah. Well, and I tell a story that's a public story in my book, Everyone's a Change Agent, about leading an effort to build an accessible playground in our community. So I know that's not a tech example or a Navy example, but as you said, I can tell this story where I can't maybe tell those others in the same detail. And so what we did with that project is rather than going to the city that didn't have any money for better playgrounds and didn't know how they would even approach improving the playgrounds for special needs children, we went as a few parents and community members and said, we will do all that we can with all that we have everywhere we are to remove the obstacles to this community having a playground. And we want to partner with you, the official people in charge of playgrounds, the city, to make that happen. And over the course of 3.5 years, we went from $0 to over 500,000 and put in a 9,000 square foot beyond accessible playground, the first one within the county, and it was the closest within 40 miles to that location to serve that community. And it's been open for over 10 years now, serving the children of that community.
That's an amazing example. Wow, you lived through that. You made that happen. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. From your experience working with engineers and technical professionals, what are some of the most common obstacles they face when trying to introduce change? How do your seven change agent essentials help address those changes? Can you explain?
Yeah, so one of the key things that happens when you're a change agent in an organization, but you aren't equipped with the seven change agent essentials, is you try and follow the status quo that everyone else does. You might see a problem and try and create a paper to advocate for your boss to support it. You might try to force the budget to allow for it. You might, demand it on your professional experience that our organization requires it or things are at risk. And oftentimes it forces distance between you as the change agent and the leadership or your peers. You might be seen as calling them out or shaming them or trying to coerce them into this activity. And even times when somebody gets, say, a leader who supports it, usually it's short lived. The leader moves on, people are frustrated with the way you approached it, and the new leader comes in and it collapses. And I'm sure many people have felt that cycle of frustration. So, armed with the change agent essentials, what a change agent would do is instead say, again, what can I do with what I have, where I am? I call that the change agent's motto. And then how can I live into this standard and help others do it too? Now, sometimes it's things that are totally within your control, like running a better meeting. So many people lament how much of their time is wasted in bad meetings. But until I talk with them and convince them they're change agents, most people are just living with bad meetings, hoping somebody someday fixes it, but it's not them. But once you choose to fix it, if you actually look at your calendar, there's a wealth of opportunities to make your work better and easier. And then you parlay that from, improving a meeting to getting maybe a small investment from the boss in a new tool, one license maybe to show or prove the concept before you advocate for a total change to an enterprise tool or forcing everybody across the organization to conform to something that you haven't even proved can produce value yet. So it's a very much more of a bootstrapping approach, living it and then helping others live it, which is actually more resilient and more resistant to leadership shocks or enterprise tool change shocks, which are the common things which really undermine quality professionals in improving their organizations.
Okay, that's interesting because this leads right into another area that I wanted to sort of look at. We are looking with PNSQC beyond software testing in the sense, I know that a lot of people think that we are a software testing conference. We emphasize that we are a quality conference, and that goes way beyond just testing. But with that also, when you're addressing quality, you have two things that you're constantly having to weigh. On one end, you're looking at innovation and change and possibility of making things work and behave better. But on the other side, you have a solid risk aversion. Any change, of course, is going to incorporate and be associated with some kind of risk. And so, how do you manage that? What's something that we could do, us as individuals, saying, I want us to be effective, but I know that I'm going to get pushback from this because let's face it, people are scared. If we do something and it doesn't work out well, somebody's head is going to be on a chopping block. What do we do with that and how can we approach that?
Yeah, great question. Well, and one of the first things I usually talk with folks about is to give me a list of the things in your organization that were failed improvements. And people can usually make a pretty long list. And then I remind them that we fail a lot, but we don't call it failure, or people, to your point, would be uncomfortable with it. So there's a bit of this dual myth, which is we hate to change things because we might fail, but we're usually in organizations failing a lot. We just don't name it. And that's part of the challenge I think that quality professionals face is their job is to name the failure. And people don't really appreciate that most times. And so the key that you get when you're a change agent coming into this environment is to say, let's align on the fact that we both want to improve. And improvement requires change. But as we've all seen, not all change is improvement. So how do we actually structure this change to guarantee it is an improvement? Which might mean we size it as a test. We test things usually in a non-production environment to make sure they work before we push to production. It's the same sort of thing you can do with a change. Let me test this new technique on this nice to have special project, not on our core product. Let me try it first on this initiative that we're doing around culture or employee engagement, not our top client's deliverable. And so when you rethink how might we approach it with what we can, where we are, do what we can, you actually find there's a wealth of opportunities that you've been overlooking because we tend to make change big in order to justify all that pushing and shoving. But when you make it small, you can find a lot of opportunities to try something in a safe to try, maybe safe to fail, right? That's what we do with a sandbox, a safe to fail environment. To prove it, then we push to production if we use that analogy, whether it's into our habits or into our code base.
Something you said really resonates with me. I even gave this example. Bugs are a taboo, issues are a taboo. And I'm like, would you go to a doctor and be like, I don't want to know anything, just tell me everything is good? You want to know what's wrong so that you can improve. You're improving it. Have that mindset, and you'll always have a better software, a better product, a better experience, better everything. And never settle for perfection because it leaves no room to grow. Sorry.
Right. Yeah.
So my next question for you is, attending your workshops, what's the one key takeaway or mindset shift you hope they will be able to apply back at their organizations after the workshop?
The key takeaway for anybody attending my workshops is this key difference between driving people and driving change. Driving people is the status quo, using coercion, threats, authority to compel others to change, versus driving change, choosing a change for yourself and clearing the obstacles for others to choose it too. If there's one habit you were to change that would make all the difference, that's it. Because you'd stop looking for a promotion, you'd stop looking for a boss's permission, you'd stop waiting for somebody else to agree, and you'd instead get to work figuring it out, learning your way forward, parlaying one success into the next, winning people, which is much more resilient. You'll be stronger and they'll be stronger, and the organization will be stronger for it. So drive change, not people. That's the key takeaway, and everything else builds from there.
Fantastic. So to sum up here, basically, we have a keynote, Everyone is a Change Agent, that April will be giving, and a workshop, Change Agent Basics. And the workshop is going to be based off of exploring her book, Everyone is a Change Agent. So, of course, we're trying to encourage, we want people to come to the conference and actually experience this in person. But we do, of course, realize not everybody who's going to see this video is going to be able to do that. So in the off chance that those who are listening to this and are saying, oh, I wish I could come to the conference, but I can't. Oh, I wish I could attend the workshop, but there's only so many people that are going to be able to go. How can they get in touch with you if they want to learn more about this?
Great ways to get in touch with me. Obviously, LinkedIn. Again, April K. Mills, and I should come up right at the top. The other is my website, Engine for Change, and it's engine-for-change.com. And you can sign up there for my weekly newsletter or email me at april@engineforchange.com. Happy to connect.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. I'm going to go and connect first.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, April. And Srilu, of course, thank you for joining me again. And we want to thank everybody out there who is watching and listening right now. Thank you for joining us for another episode of PNSQ Chronicles. And we look forward to coming back to be with you again very soon. Take care, everybody.